If you could raise your hand or hit me in the chat room, we'll get to as many questions as possible. And we will start with Dan Savage of OrlandoMagic.com.
Cliff, as you look back on the season, what stands out to you about this particular group and, defining characteristics of your season?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I think the biggest thing is I look back at my notes for, what I thought our team would be, what our strengths would be. And because of the injuries, and this is not an excuse, is, to make the right decisions going forward, you have to come up with definitive ideas of why things happened. And, to play so much of the year without Jonathan and without Farouk, because with them, I envisioned us being, a chance to have a top 5 defensive team. And along with that, just like the injuries that we took in the bubble, the number one thing I would say about our team, and I'm very proud of this, is the resiliency that they showed to continue to make improvement during the season after we took those injuries, and they did the same thing in the bubble. So although we're disappointed that, we didn't win a playoff series and didn't go further into playoffs, because that's what our league is all about, I think our guys, again, showed great resiliency. They stuck together. And if you were with them every day, you saw the way they worked and the way they practiced towards making progress, which is a difficult thing to do in pro sports.
Right. Josh Robbins, The Athletic.
Steve, in what areas must the team improve during the offseason?
Well, I mean, Josh, that's for me is, that's for the next like 3-4 weeks. And obviously I'll sit down with Jeff and with John and talk about things. I'll start to spend time with our staff. We'll do studies. I'll spend a lot of time with David Bench and Dylan Murphy to look at the numbers. And, that's what you have to do. I mean, there's things obviously that you see with, as you're watching. Our league is constantly evolving, and that's why watching these playoff games closely is important and helpful. And then you have to look at our team and, what was good, what was bad. But nobody's smart enough to just watch a bunch of 82 games or whatever we just played and then the next day say, this is what we need to do. It's not the way it works. I mean, this takes study, and we have time to do that now, and that's what we'll start to do.
Mike Bianchi, Orlando Sentinel.
Yes, Steve. Obviously, I mean, you talked about the injuries. We don't know what J.I.'s status is going to be next year. What, as far as planning for next season, what does his status, the uncertainty, mean for you? Yeah,
look, I'd be less than honest if I didn't say that his injury was, is a kick in the teeth for all of us. I mean, he's a big part of our plan going forward. He's a very talented player, and he also brings great intangibles to our team. So to say that injury is not significant, again, would be naive on my part and untruthful to you guys. So it is, but there's always ways that you can get better in this league. I mean, one of the things about coaching in pro sports versus, say, college sports is all of these guys are terrific players. And what we have to do is, maximize those other 14 spots in our roster. I mean, case in point, look at how we played before that stretch of whatever it was from the All-Star game to play stoppage. We were the number 1 offensive team in the NBA. And, some of that was, picking up James Ennis, who, gave us more shooting on the floor, the play of Aaron Gordon, and then, Vooch, T. Ross, and some other guys were playing at a high level. So we'll have enough to win and be successful. And again, Mike, we have these months to figure that out, but there's always ways you can get better.
Tim Reynolds, Associated Press.
Hey, Cliff. To go back to, I think it was Dan asked the first question. When you talk about the resiliency of the group you had this year, was Game 5 maybe the personification of that? I mean, you're facing elimination. You've been in the bubble for 2 months. You're down 20. You're down 3-1, and all of a sudden you make it a one-possession game. Was that stretch kind of maybe the best example of how you're going to remember this group this year?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I think the thing that, and when you have some veteran players, which we do, I mean, as you guys know, 48 minutes is a long time. With the way people, shooting so many threes now, you can come back in a hurry. I mean, you saw that last night. Look at Dallas Clippers. It was similar. And I think, getting guys to understand that is not always easy, but this group did. Like, for instance, there's so many reasons, especially in the playoffs. Shot making, for instance, is obviously a big deal. Look at Kawhi, look at Jamal Murray last night. Shot making is a huge deal. Having guys that can go get shots on their own is a big deal. And yet, just as importantly and this is what our team grasped this year, is winning the turnover game, winning the rebounding game, winning the free throw game. Those will always, that's never going to change in basketball. Winning starts with not beating yourselves. And when your group understands that collectively, they understand how to work a game, how you can stay in a game, and how you can compete in a game. And that's what our guys became good at.
Philip Rossman-Reich, Orlando Magic Daily.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, each year plays out differently, and there's a different mood to each season. But how did this team handle maybe being a team that other teams were chasing for the playoff spot? Obviously, you were able to hold off and earn that spot. But how did the team kind of handle that change of mindset to, this playoff spot is ours rather than we have to go out and get it?
No, I think, I've loved our attitude going into the bubble, starting with when Amway opened and guys were able to go in with the coaches. I mean, the first, I think 3 weeks, Joe can probably tell me 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I wasn't even able to go in. But the first thing that I said to the coaches and to David Tenney when I got in there was, I love the vibe. Guys were in, getting their work in, they were serious, and it carried over to, when we went into the bubble. So everything, I mean, it doesn't matter. Basketball is no different than anything else. It all starts with the right approach, the right attitude, the right amount of work. And we do have I thought we had a very committed, serious-minded team. And that played out. So I would say that. The other part of it, and this is, you'll never know, right? But I think we had gone 8-4 in our last 12 before play stoppage, and we would have had the second easiest schedule in the NBA. In that part, we were unlucky because we ended up playing a much more difficult schedule in the bubble than we would have played if we would have been able to finish up with our last 17 games. So I think that with the momentum we had, we were coming off a road trip where we went 3 out of 4, which in our league is difficult for any team to do. And we were playing with great confidence. And again, we'll never know, but I really, again, the feeling in the locker room and in the practice floor was that, our team was ready to finish the season on a strong note. So, and those are important characteristics. In pro sports, there's nothing more important than the group, in terms of group dynamics, of them understanding if we didn't have the right attitude and learn from each game, we'll get better and better. And that's what we did last year, and that's what we're on our way to doing again this year.
Brandon Kravitz, 96.9 The Game.
Morning, Steve. Have you thought about what your process in the offseason is going to be like, the schedule change and the uncertainty of when next season is even going to start?
That's a great question, and it's difficult because, it's hard for players. It's obviously hard for coaches, hard for everybody when you don't have clarity about, where the league is at, when we're going to start. And so it does make it difficult. It makes it difficult in terms of individual planning for the guy's summer. You know, as we start, as we'll, you know, we'll take some time off here to refresh, obviously. But then, you know, to get back and do the study that we need to as a staff. And so all those things are difficult. All I know is this: the off season is always about getting better, and there's two ways to do that. And the part that we're more involved with is the internal development. You know, we need to come back next year, and the first time guys get together, they have to say, you know, whatever. Look at Aaron Gordon, look at Vooch, look at Markelle Fultz, whoever it is. What did they do? Because they're playing already. I can see this, the way they're shooting the ball, the way they're handling the ball, whatever it is. But you need individual development. All of the best players in our league get better every year, regardless of their age. Look at LeBron. LeBron gets better every year. Sometimes, some summers it's small things. Other times it's been bigger things. That's the way it's always been. That's the misconception, is that only the younger players have to get better in the summers. The older players have to get better too. And coaches have a big part of that, because you have to come to a common place on them of what their goals should be in the summer. Most of the time, to be honest, for the veteran guys, it's one thing. It's one thing. And that's that part of it. And then obviously there's the external development part, which is, you know, draft, free agency, trades, whatever it is. But we can get better, significantly better, just by our guys making a great commitment this summer and getting better individually.
Eric Wilson.
Hey, Coach, thanks for taking the time to do this. So I wanted to ask you about the Magic organization's involvement now that the season is over, with continuing with FRRC, and also just with the whole voting and continuing about the whole systemic oppression and racial injustice.
Yes. So, you know, first of all, I haven't seen much of it reported, and I mean, all of this is evolving, but we also, within, not just our team, but our whole organization, you know, our CEO, Alex Martins, has organized a task force within the Magic organization. Jeff Altman's a big part of it. Linda Lim and Gonzalez, and a number of other people. And there's a lot of talk, study, discussions going on right now about how we can all work together to make the Orlando community a better place for everybody to live with. There's more, you know, equality of opportunity for everybody. In terms of our team, we will continue to work with FRRC and some other local grassroots organizations in all areas. The voting piece right now will be, you know, the biggest piece, because, you know, the elections are coming up. But we also want to be involved in community betterment. We want to be involved in police accountability. We want to be involved in education reform. Like I think I've mentioned to you before, our guys don't want this to be some photo op thing where, you know, we have an all-star game on a Sunday afternoon and it looks good. They want to be involved in real positive and sustainable change. And I think we have a number of guys who are committed to that. We have some great local people here. Obviously, Desmond Meade, you know, is a superstar that we want to work with. Linda Lim and Gonzalez is an incredible resource for me, for our team, and for our organization. And we're going to be active in trying to do everything that we can to make it a better place to live.
Roy Perry, Orlando Sentinel.
Morning, Steve. I know you've talked a lot about Markelle and just how it was important for him to get over those injuries, but how encouraging was it to see him healthy this season? And also, in what ways did DJ's presence as a veteran point guard benefit Markelle this season?
Well, I'll do the second question first, Roy. First of all, I think DJ's impact on Markelle ever since he got here has been incredibly positive, and it's, you know, I don't want to put words in Markelle's mouth, but it's helped him a great deal. They share an agent. You know, I know they speak at times, a couple of times, actually during play stoppage, I would call Markelle and he would have just spoken to DJ about things. DJ brings professionalism, character, work ethic. I mean, everything that's positive about the NBA to a team. And I think Markel took good advantage of that. In terms of just Markel's play and his progress, like he's to me, I say this all the time. He's a DC kid. He grew up playing against great talent. He learned the game like DC point guards do. He knows the game, and he's a very serious player. He, physically, has made incredible gains. From his shoulder to his knee to his wrist, and he has to put a ton of time in to get ready to play and practice every day. He's easy to coach. He's fun to be around. He's a terrific teammate. He's a very talented guy. So he too, like Jonathan, has a lot of intangibles that he brings to the franchise. And for me, I'm beyond ecstatic with the way that he played. I don't think anybody could have been around him, say, last July when he wasn't even able to shoot, say, free throw line jumpers 2 days in a row, could have ever envisioned that he'd be in the place he is after 13 months. So it was a real positive. And you know what? Having the opportunity to compete against a guy like Eric Bledsoe in a playoff series was a great experience for him too. And I thought he responded well and handled it very well.
Aaron Goldstone.
Thanks. Coach, we're 2 years now into Mo Bamba's career, and you've been here since the beginning. Can you look back to the summer of 2018 and where Mo was when he came to the Magic and now where he is today, and just kind of assess where he's come as a pro and what are some things in your point of view he still needs to work on?
Yeah, well, the one thing is I think sometimes, he's made such significant gains, and what happens now compared to, when I first got in the league, when guys stayed in college for 2-3 years, these guys come into the league where, they're 19, 20 years old. And then I think there's an expectation that they're ready to jump from, after 1 year of college, that they're ready to jump in a pro game and play against 28 and 29-year-olds who are seasoned veterans, and they'll experience real success right away. And it's hard to do. So, you take Mo. He played 1 year at Texas. He was a good player. And you come here, and the other thing about for that position is the defense is totally different, especially the way the game is now with 5 outs. So in college, he could stand in the lane and block shots. Now you're adding dribble handoff coverages and pick and roll coverages against players who are, far, far better, obviously, than in college. And this is not negative. I mean, it's just guys come out of college so early now that when people say, hey, he played in a Big 5 conference, the level of play in the best college games and the pro games, not even close. So it's a huge step. It's not a small step. It's a huge step. I think he's made good progress. He can really shoot the ball. And, everything else is improved, and it's going to take time. And, the injuries have been a part of it too. But I think that he has a better understanding of what it takes to become a good player in the NBA. And, I think he understands what he has to do to get there.
Luke Hendrick, Spectrum Sports.
Hey, Cliff, I know you talked about it a few minutes ago that with J.I. and Farouk in the lineup, you felt you could be a top 5 defensive team. Not having J.I. maybe for next year, what do you think the potential of this core is for next year?
You know what? I lost you there for a second on here. Did you say, like, what would the core be?
Yeah, no, my question was, sorry for cutting out. What do you think that the potential and the peak of that core can be without J.I. next year?
Oh, okay. Well, I think a lot of that, Luke, to be honest, is that's the internal development piece, to me. I mean, I really believe, again, people always think when a guy gets to be 26 or 27, that's who he is. And, you know, Vooch is a great example. Vooch is, look at him now compared to a year ago. Look at the playoff series that he just had against the #1 defensive team in the NBA. And he knows this, and he too, he can get better. If he gets so that he's 38, 39% from three with his decision-making ability, his ability to pass the ball, and the way he scores closer to the basket, it puts him in a different place and it puts us in a different place. And in terms of the range shooting, you know, people have to remember, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, he wasn't shooting threes. So this is new for him, and he's made a good commitment to it. And, you know, Bruce Kreitzer is a big part of it. You know, they work diligently on it. And then I think the understanding of how to play out in space, which he'd never done much, which Mike Battie helps him a lot with. So my point is, that's where for the summer, we have to have, or the off season, like everybody else, we have to have great plans. And, you know, guys can always get better if they have the right approach. And it's one thing I'm comfortable with our team is we have guys that will work.
Paul Casanova.
Hi, Coach. Ending the season is always emotional, but this year coming out of the bubble, was it a little bit more emotional? And also, could you talk about what it done for the team being in the bubble?
I totally agree with you. It was the you know, look, obviously one of the fun things about coaching is that it's the emotion, it's the competition, you know, how great it is when you win a big game, and then you know, having the ability to deal with disappointment, setback. That's all part of being on a team. And this year was you know, an incredible unique experience of being in the bubble with everything that's going on in our world. And again, I thought our guys stayed together. Were very committed. And it's funny, in retrospect, looking back on it, I think being so close to home in some ways might have made it even more difficult. You know, we had some guys who are literally, I think Terrence and Markel are literally like 10, 15 minutes from their homes, and yet, you know, couldn't see their loved ones, families, whatever. So there was a lot more that went into this than normal. And it was a complicated situation, but I think our guys handled it really well.
All right, I'm going to go back to Tim Reynolds, AP.
Steve, I'm sure that other leagues would have fallen in line at some point, but when you look back at this year, the NBA was the first league to shut down in response to the virus, and then, you know, everything stopped. Wednesday, the Bucks wouldn't come out, and the rest of the world largely followed over the next day. What's it mean to you that the league is always at the forefront of change, and that pretty much it seemed like it has been the example that other leagues point to and say, if the NBA is doing it, we probably should be doing it?
Yeah, and I think it shows. I mean, number one, our commissioner is so, I think, you know, obviously brilliant, step ahead, forward thinking, and also so detailed in what everything that he has our league do. You know, Jeff Weltman was on, I think, 1 or 2 of the committees that were involved in studying all aspects of what the bubble would have to look like in order for it to be successful. And it took months, and it was, you know, they had owners committees, they had, you know, whatever, management committees, you know, coaches were on a committee. But the amount of work and detail and preparation that went into what they did was incredible. And when he said before, it'll be one of the safest places in the country, and it was. I mean, look at the numbers. But if you were in there with, you know, from taking your own temperature every morning before you could leave your room to, you know, daily COVID testing. If you walked around without your mask off, there was a call to your league representative, your team representative quickly. I mean, they were all over it. So that part doesn't surprise me. I do want to say one thing that, you know, because you know, and I think people know this, but is what Milwaukee did not only triggered a great response from other pro athletes and pro teams, but the other thing it did for us, as we're all ever evolving, is it helped us get more organized too. And it brought the owners more to the forefront in working closely with the league and the players, you know, as we fight to get rid, you know, fight against systemic racism. And, you know, from opening the arenas for voting to the discussion about bringing in consultants that can help us, the players and the owners with the league to become more organized and have more definitive priorities was a critical step. And it can lead to so many good things. The protests are great. I think everything that's being done in the bubble continues to bring awareness to an incredibly serious problem in our country. And yet the way that it's got to change is we have to change the laws. We have to change local policies. We have to change the way that we live. And that's going to happen by getting powerful people and politicians to be more involved. So if you look at our owners, those are people that are powerful and they have the money that can make change. So to bring to them more to the forefront with the players can only be positive.
Ryan Welch, WKMG.
Yeah, Steve, you obviously wanted to go further, but it's back-to-back playoff appearances now. So is that the standard for this Orlando Magic franchise right now?
Well, I think what it does, Ryan, it makes us more relevant again. So I think that, you know, I was writing down some notes last night. I was watching those teams play. Is first of all, making the playoffs is never an easy thing. You can't take it for granted. What do they say? You have to be in it to win it. You know, Coach Parcells always used to say the number one thing is you got to be in the tournament. And we did that 2 years in a row. So it's a step. And yet, look, when you're a coach, I'm not naive, is you got to win in the playoffs. You have to have playoff success. And I understand that. Our guys understand that. And ultimately, just getting there isn't going to be enough. It's a big step. I think that if 2 years ago, if all of us would have said, hey, we're going to start over here, and if in the next 2 years you can make playoff appearances, would you take that? I think everybody would have said yes. But, you know, again, pro sports is about how you play in the playoffs and winning in the playoffs, and we all understand that.
Okay, Mike Bianchi.
Yeah, Steve, are those Mickey Mouse ears on that bookshelf behind you?
Yeah, I'll show you that. This is actually, they gave it to us. This is, you know, I'm going to keep this. This is you can see on the back, it's the NBA restart. So I have a few things that I took that I'm in my little office here that I'm going to, you know, keep forever. But that was one of the presents from Disney to, I think, to everybody that was in the travel parties. And it's one of the things I'm going to keep. Yeah.
Also, with T. Ross's skill set, could he play an even bigger role moving forward with you guys? I mean, he already plays a major role, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, to be honest with you, is I kicked myself here, particularly game 5. Game 4, he got, you know, he was in foul trouble. And a lot of times I just play him through it in the first half, and I didn't. And, you know, you just never know. I mean, you know, you get it down to 2 or you get it down to 4, because, you know, when he's on the floor, whether he's making or not, there's so much more room for everybody else because they give him so much attention. And then the same thing happened in game 5. You know, we got a group that was playing well. He was supposed to go in. The group was playing well. And so, you know, I made the decision to stay with that group. And then I look at his minutes. And, you know, my plan for that game was I wanted him to play 30, 31 minutes. And I think he ended up with like 23, 24. And you don't know. I mean, he can be 0 for 5 and he can score 12 points in like 2.5, 3 minutes. So there's always things that as a coach you look back and say, you know, I wish I had a do-over on that one. And one of the first things that stands out to me is not watching the tape, but just looking at the numbers was he should have been on the floor more.
Okay, time for a few more. We'll go Josh Cohn, OrlandoMagic.com.
Hey, Cliff. Making the playoffs and having very good stretches despite all the injuries, did that show you that this team had a lot of depth and versatility to be able to handle all the setbacks?
Yes, and guys stepped up. I mean, I think I could give you a number of examples, but look at Gary Clark, and how he played in the bubble, where that was by far to this date in his career his biggest opportunity. Think about it. You go from being, somebody that anybody could have had to you're lining up and playing against Giannis, 5 times as a starter and matched up with him for the majority of the game. And I thought he played really well. He did a really good job. He's got size. He can shoot the ball. He has a defensive component to how he plays. And this can be a good impetus for him to take this and get to the next level. But again, I'll say this. In the NBA, the difference, I remember finding this out. I had been in college for a long time. When you lose a player in college, usually you take a big step down in talent. And in the NBA, all of these guys, they're the 450 best players of the world. So do we have another guy like J.I.? No, we don't. But we have other guys that if they'll play the right way and they're smart, and we do have very smart guys, you'll always have a chance to compete.
All right, we'll go Roy Perry, Orlando Sentinel.
Steve, I know that you have a pretty good connection with Georgetown because of your relationship, with Patrick Ewing. Just wondering if you can just sort of reflect on John Thompson, what he's meant to basketball, and if you had any, if you had any personal interactions with him over the years.
I mean, he's a giant, and one of the, I think, great, coaches, leaders of our time. What he did there, what he built there at Georgetown, again, like a top 10 or top 12 winning program when the Big East was the rave, when all kids wanted to play in the Big East. I think you guys remember, I remember being younger, Monday night, everybody who's playing in the Big East game, everybody watched Monday nights. And, Patrick, and Coach Thompson, an incredible relationship. And so I'm in one of the great coaches, men, leaders in our field, during this last period.
Okay, we'll go a few more. Phil Rossman-Reich.
Hey, Coach. Evan obviously had a strong regular season and really seemed to put a lot of things together, but struggled again in the playoffs. How do you evaluate his season, and what do you think happened in the postseason? I mean, obviously the bubble was kind of its own thing a little bit, and he had the illness that kept him out. But what did you see from him throughout the year, and what kind of happened in the postseason?
Yeah, I think this was his most efficient offensive season as a pro player. He was coming off a great World Cup, and he was very much in rhythm, and he played that way. Shot making, and more than anything, it's his play off screening action off the ball was where he was really good. And in terms of the playoff part, and he's not going to say this because it's just not how he's built. He's professional guy, he's very competitive, but he wasn't close to 100%. I think he was feeling better the last couple of games. Their defense had something to do with it. Wesley Matthews is terrific, defender, terrific. So it wasn't going to be easy anyway, but Evan just wasn't close physically to 100%. He got sick when we got down there, and he missed a few days. He came back and tried to play when he wasn't healthy. And then I think, again, Joel, maybe you can help me, but I think it was like 7 days where he couldn't do anything. So couldn't exercise, would come to practice, just sit and watch and drink water. And it's hard to come back from that, and especially playing at that level, at the games that are that intense. So for me, it's never one thing, but for sure, I mean, to play in a playoff series, you need to be at your best and healthy, and he wasn't close to that.
Okay, final question goes to Josh Robbins, Athletic.
Steve, what kind of reports are you hearing from your team's medical personnel about Farouk's rehab? And given that there's no real legitimate chance that J.I. will be able to play for at least the vast majority of next season, how critical will Farouk have to be for your team to be competitive next year?
Yeah, and I think he's been able to do more on the floor here. I know this last stretch while we were in the bubble. And one thing, look, he's a very, again, talking about another guy, he's a very diligent worker, very professional guy. And so he'll work his way, he's going to work his way through it. And then again, I think some of it, Josh, to be honest, is just, as he continues to work, how does his knee respond? So I think, I know you guys are talking to Jeff. Jeff has a better feel for all of those things than I do, and you'll get better information from him. But for sure, listen, I mean, if Farouk can get back and be healthy, then he can be a major asset. He's been a winning player for a long time.
All right, Cliff, we appreciate your time, and we will reconvene at 11 a.m. for Jeff Weltman. Thank you.
Thank you.